Hi, my name is Marilyn Blakesley, and I had a tear down and rebuild. My family bought shoreline property in 1903 and built a summer house that I went to every year. And it was my wish at the time of retirement to be able to winterize it and retire there. And I interviewed a couple of architects, ended up with Point One, and I dealt with the woman, Sabrina, that's there. And she was wonderful. She said she had a lot of contractors that she worked with, but only 3 that she could think of that would appreciate the fact that I'm a woman and that I'm running the show. She said they're all good contractors, but not all of them may be the best at working with a single woman. So I interviewed 3 different contractors and ended up with Rick Brauchler and could not be happier. I had a totally smooth transition. It was exactly 1 year to the day that the original house was knocked down and I moved into the new house. I went with Rick, number one, because I trusted him. And, some people argue, oh, you should be your own general contractor. And that's the last thing I wanted to do. Rick has a really great relationship with all of his subcontractors, so he was able to schedule things, and because they were people that he knew, you could count on the workmanship. So it was just a great experience. I would never have tried to be my own general contractor, that's for sure. He just did a fantastic job. Working with him was seamless. He asked questions, asked for my input, and I have to share one of my best stories. The whole house was designed around the original fireplace. And at the time that the house was demolished, Rick came over to me and he said, I have bad news. There's no footing under the chimney. We can't save the chimney. And Rick, the whole house was designed around the fireplace. He said, don't worry, I've got it covered. He found a stonemason who came into the original house. He stripped off all of the face of the original fireplace, took pictures, numbered the stones, brought all the stone off site. They built a brand new chimney, and then the mason came back and built the fireplace just the way it looked like originally. And I have a picture of my great-grandfather from the 1930s sitting in front of the fireplace, right next to the fireplace, so you can see it looks exactly the same. It was that level of care and concern where he went out of his way to do those things that he knew meant a lot for his clients. The design process was mostly focused with Point One architects, but Rick and his guys also were able to give me some suggestions when we were going along the way. There's an area under the eaves upstairs where, rather than closing it off with sheetrock, Rick said, we could build a really nice cubby for your grandchildren to hide out in here. And so they did that, and it's one of my grandkids' favorite place. They call it their hideout. Another example is one of his carpenters, who does incredible detailed work, was upstairs, and the trim that's downstairs is fairly wide. And when we were upstairs, he said, you might want to consider using the same makeup for the trim, but make it just a little narrower, since the ceilings are a little lower upstairs than downstairs. And we did that, and it came out beautifully. So as we're going through the process, both Rick and his guys had great suggestions. The reason I had to tear down the original cottage that was here, first of all, it was only a summer house. And at the time, the hurricane codes for building right here on the water were very, very strict. And there's no way that the original house could be rebuilt to meet those hurricane codes. So it was much more cost-effective and practical to knock down the original house and then rebuild with new. As it turns out, the hurricane codes changed midway through the build. They were actually lessened, but I'm glad that the house was designed. For example, all the windows are hurricane resistant, and that's no longer a requirement, but quite frankly, I'm glad I have them. Quite often you kind of get a house built and then you never see the builder again. And Rick and I have actually become friends, and a couple of minor things that have happened since I moved in, gasketing along a particular door, or minor things like that that needed to be done. He was great, sent people right over and took care of it, even though it's been 5 years. So he really stands behind what he does.